Hello there, welcome to this week's video. I'm Karen from karenturpin.com. It's the 14th of August 2023. This week I'm going to kind of free flow a little bit and I'm going to talk about the levels of awakening and some of my personal experiences of that. Because somebody asked me on her podcast recently and she wanted to talk to me about my spiritual awakening experience. And it was interesting for me because I know a lot of people claim to have this massive event that creates their awakening. I didn't have that. Mine happened very gradually and slowly over a period of years. And I've got to say that the majority of the people I work with have experienced the same, gradually opening. So I know there are people that have near-death experiences and, you know, it's all very major and dramatic. And there are people that have, you know, like the Kundalini awakening and that's very kind of explosive as well. And, you know, we can all have our awakening in many different ways. Some people, it's grief. And I remember when my mum died many years ago, that was really the opening of my psychic senses, seeing and sensing energy and spirit and, you know, that knowing certain things, the clairaudience, the clair vision, you know, all of that opened up for me. But I wouldn't say it was just sudden, just like that. It was more a case of, you know, as time went by, I suddenly realized that I was hearing spirit, that I could see spirit, and I knew things that I didn't know before. And it was only afterwards I realized that was my clairsentience, clairvoyance, clairaudience, all of that had opened up. At the time it started to open up, I didn't even know those words. Actually, it was later on I thought, oh, that's what that's called. You know, I didn't know any of that stuff as my spiritual awakening happened. And the other thing I hear a lot of people say is that they claim to have been awake their whole life since they were a small child. And, you know, I kind of question that a little bit because I could say I've been awake my whole life as well, but I realise that it's only when you're awake that you can look back and see aspects of being awake, things that you knew as a kid, or the way that you felt or sensed things as a child. I don't think as a child you go, oh, I'm awake and I know I'm awake. I think it's only later on when you're fully awake that you look back and go, wow, that was actually with me my whole life. And then they say, oh, I've been awake my whole life. So I don't know, maybe it's just a matter of interpretation or how we express it. I'm not 100% certain of that, but I do know that there are levels of awakening. And so over these last 3 years in particular, you know exactly what I'm talking about, we've seen a lot of people wake up. And we could say, well, this is the age of the Great Awakening, and that was meant to happen. And yay, bring it on, I say. Many of the people that we see or say have woken up through that period of time are not awake on many other levels, though. They may be awake to the level of manipulation and coercion and lies and deceits that have surrounded the events of these last 3 years. So they are awake to that. They are awake to the part that the governments and the three-letter organisations have played in all of that. They are awake to that, and that's a good thing. But they're not awake on many other levels. So let's look at food, right? The food and health industry. My awakening to that happened probably, I'm trying to think, it would have been around 1985, I think. I read my first book about vitamins and minerals. And in that book, the author, can't even remember who she was, I know it was a woman, but she alluded to things being misrepresented on food labels. And I started to read food labels then, and then discovered that some of the things I was eating, I didn't even know what it was. It's certainly not ingredients you find in a home kitchen. Most of them I don't think you could even purchase in a shop because they're chemical compounds. I started to question food and how it affects your health back then. I went on to do a degree in holistic nutrition, and that opened me up to more, and I discovered about the meat industry and the dairy industry and the sugar, and how so much of that has been falsified information, misrepresented to us, the lies, the cover-up, the deceit around that, the marketing around that. And then, of course, the tobacco industry. And then I looked at pharmaceuticals, and the word thalidomide springs to mind, but Johnson & Johnson baby powder, and the fact that Pfizer have been sued. I think they've got the biggest payout of all. And so these are all levels of awakening, right? We are awake to the food industry. And, if you walk down a supermarket aisle now at all the rows and rows of boxes of things that are not real food, like you can read the ingredients in there, but how? What does that look like, in a processing factory? And is there any life force in that food? We are living beings. We need to put life force in the way of nutrition into our body. So most of the things, probably, 95% of the things, maybe 98% of the things you find in a supermarket are not food, not real food. So when you read the ingredients list, it's like, wow, if each of those chemicals was sat in front of you in a little glass or a dish, would you ingest them? Probably not. You'd see that stuff there and you go, ugh, I don't want to eat that. What's that? It's like, that's not real food. And yet, make it into something that looks good, advertise it well, put it in a box. Will you eat it? Oh yeah, that tastes delicious. These are the things that we need to be awake to. It's another level of awakening, right? So if you look at all the products that are in the supermarket, on the shelves, that didn't exist 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and let's, put that beside the list of illnesses and diseases that we have now on the pharmaceutical shelf, let's say, that didn't exist 10 or 20 years ago. Is there a correlation between the two? The food in the supermarket that's all new and chemical, and the diseases that didn't exist before. Is there a correlation? Maybe that's another level of awakening for people to explore. Let's have a look at money. Back in the day, like I'm going back a long time, there would be silver pennies, it would be gold and silver. Well, before that, of course, I would barter you half a dozen eggs and you'd give me, 6 lemons or whatever it is. There was bartering, but it was real physical items, right? And then we went to gold and silver or shekels of nickel or whatever it is that we had, right? And then now we're into the situation where the money we have, the cash we have, is fiat currency. It's not backed by anything. And, of course, they're going to try and move everybody into a digital currency. So it's literally just a number on a screen, not backed by anything. And, of course, they can switch it off. Literally, the flick of a switch. Here's an interesting thought, because just prior to recording this video, somebody sent me a video about what would happen if the electricity grid went down all over America. They were talking about, people invading your property to get food and all of that stuff. It was a real, not a nice prospect that they were putting forward. But it's in my mind as I talk to you about this now, and I'm thinking, well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because if they take all of our cash away and we have to do everything digitally, if the electric grid goes down, how do we pay for anything? Oh, we can't buy anything. Certainly can't buy fuel. Certainly can't even buy groceries at the local store because we can't pay because the electric's down and it's all digital now and cash is removed. There's a level of awakening that needs to occur around that, right? Before we get to the time where it's all central bank and it's all a digital currency and we have no access to anything. So there's another level of awakening there. What have we done? We've done the physical, the health, we've done the pharmaceutical, the diseases. Could go down the vaccine route, but probably won't today. We've talked about money. What else could we talk about? Well, of course, a spiritual awakening is close to my heart because, that's kind of what I do. And I think a spiritual awakening is necessary. And I think it's a level of awakening that we haven't quite seen yet. Even though this great awakening and the last 3 years has done a lot to shake people awake from their slumber, but still we've got these levels of awakening, and still I'm not seeing quite so many in a spiritual awakening. Now, having been, working, if you like, within the spiritual industry for 30 years, I started obviously with psychic development and then mediumistic development, meditation and crystals and all the things. I've done all the things and probably moved away from most of those things because I see that even within the spiritual realm, let's say, I'll call it spiritual industry. Within the spiritual industry, there are levels there of awakening. So when we first wake up, we get into, the beautiful visualization meditations, and then we get into the crystals and Reiki, of course, everyone thinks of Reiki. We do all of these things, and that's beautiful. But there's levels and levels and levels of awakening beyond that as well. And so I know from experience, we've talked about moving into 5D, we've talked about ascension, we've talked multidimensional, we've talked all of this. And really, these are just levels of a construct within the spiritual awakening arena, if you like. So when I find that there is a spiritual group around my area, I think, wow, that would be really nice to meet other people that are into spirituality. And very often when I meet these people, they're not in the same level of awakening as I am. And that's not to say I'm more or they're more or we're less or anything. It's just that even though we're all interested in this spirituality, we're not meeting. We're not meeting on the same level. It's a little bit like music, the music I like may not be the music you like. And I go and I join, a community that's all about music. And when I get there, I'm like, oh, not my kind of music, though, And so there's no judgment in that. It's just a case of not into what they're into, I guess. However, even beyond that, and there's no judgment in this, I would say there are levels of awakening to that. So many years ago, a group that I was kind of involved in, it was an online group, but a whole gang of them went to visit John of God. And he was being put forward at the time as the next best thing since sliced bread, right? An amazing healer. And of course, Oprah picked him up and put him all over the place. But I never really aligned to him. Even, where is he in Brazil, right? I didn't want to travel to Brazil to see him. Actually, wasn't interested in anything that the group did there. Didn't want to know anything about him. He just didn't feel resonant to me. Now, of course, we know that he was not a nice person, let's say. You can research that for yourself, what he was put in prison for. But there was no alignment there. And that in itself, I remember in that spiritual group I was in, it was really uncomfortable for people to have to wake up and accept the truth of what this man had done to these women and children. They didn't want to wake up to that next level because they had this person on a pedestal and they could see no wrong. Now, when I look at many of the spiritual teachers that are out there today, there are things going on behind the scenes with them energetically that I feel and sense, and it makes me go, that's not right. Some of them click that instantly. The minute I first see them, I'm like, whoa, no, something's not right about them. Look at Bikram yoga. That was a big deal, right? Everybody, he was the guru to so many people that did the yoga, Bikram yoga, right? And then, the whole story about Bikram yoga, if you look into that, there are people that were absolutely shattered that this guru had done these things, right? And they found that very difficult to accept because they had this whole illusion of what this person represented to them. So they had a level of awakening that it wasn't all what they thought it was. And this is, I think actually we're going to see a lot of this coming forward as well within the spiritual industry, these teachers and leaders and gurus. Obviously you probably know that I've had an interest in spiritual cults because I've helped so many people to deprogram from those cults when they've wanted to come out of them. So I'm interested in how we are mind controlled by or manipulated by these people. And as I say, I think within the spiritual industry, we're going to see a lot of these coming up to be seen because, as I've talked about all the time in my other videos, the spotlight of truth is shining brightly now. And even within the spiritual industry where we think, wow, this is going to be so beautiful and so pure, no. We have charlatans and con artists within the spiritual industry too. And I think going forward, we're going to see these fake people being called out. And technologies within the spiritual industry as well. Some of the healing devices that people think is amazing. I think we're going to see that the frequencies are not quite what we think they are. And, even in terms of some of the multi-level marketing of these items that go on in the spiritual industry and the health industry as well. There was one recently that I thought looked kind of good, but I never really fully stepped into it. And before I knew it, of course, people are calling it out. And so that's the time that we are in the world right now, I think. Awakening is happening at many, many levels. As I say, it's physical. It's the physical stuff that is happening in the world around us. Banking, health, finance, pharmaceutical, and the spiritual industry. We're going to see levels of awakening. There's going to be a shattering of illusions. All of that stuff. I had a conversation this morning with somebody about the Lionsgate. Of course, everybody rushes to do Lionsgate meditations because it's August and that's the Lionsgate portal opening, and there's going to be an amazing experience from this. People have been saying that for a long, long time, and it's not something I align to. Let me say it like that. A lot of people make a lot of money from it, though, with their meditations and their activations and their retreats and their circles. all aligned to the lion's gate. And we have astrologers saying, actually, that's the wrong date. It aligns here somewhere else. I don't even know much about the stars and astrology and how it all moves, but I kind of feel that some of those dates are a little bit off because we're running those dates by the Gregorian calendar, and we haven't always had the Gregorian calendar. So research that. How can we have certain dates and saying this happens on this date when, and it has for time immemorial, when we haven't had that calendar for time immemorial? Maybe there needs to be an awakening to that level of deceit as well. So anyway, that's a few of my thoughts. I'll let you research that, have a think about that yourself, and let's talk about it. Come over into my Facebook group, Awake, Aware, Sovereign and Free. I'd like to discuss these things with you. I'm not the gospel. I don't know everything. All I know is what I feel personally, what my inner guidance tells me, what I feel aligned to, what feels like truth and what feels like fake and illusion. And of course, next coming up, we've got artificial intelligence. It's going to be writing all of those sales pages of the courses that you rush for. Not mine, I got to say. It's going to be writing all those articles that you think are great. Not mine, got to say, because I will never use artificial intelligence for anything that I produce. That's probably going to be quite evident because I stumble over my words. There are spelling mistakes in my stuff. Sometimes I use the wrong word, like when instead of will or something, I don't know. But I'm human, I make mistakes. I don't know if artificial intelligence allows space for that. And there's going to be courses written, the whole lot, by artificial intelligence. And you're going to think that teacher, healer, coach knows what they're talking about and that they wrote that course. No. It's going to be fed to them by artificial intelligence, which is a conglomerate, an accumulation of everybody else's input, a mishmash of stuff, and they're going to be promoting that as their own. So there's money to be made in that. And to me, that's fake. I don't like fake. I like truth. And there will have to be a level of awakening to that as well. Because at the moment, people are running hook, line and sinker into it, or running headline into it, I should say. And they're kind of getting consumed by it. So at a certain point, we will see a level of awakening to that. Oh, it's not all what I thought it was. Anyway, as I say, that's just a few of my thoughts. I haven't got any notes written down this week. Often, most of the time, I kind of sit and I kind of channel from my higher self what I want to say and what I want to talk about. I didn't do that this week. I just spoke. So a few of my random thoughts in terms of levels of awakening and where we need to wake up. Because saying I'm awake maybe doesn't cut it on every level. So let's just look at that, right? And let's not take it all at face value. Let's learn to go inwards, to trust ourselves, to trust our intuition, our inner guidance that's going to say to us, yep, this is kosher, or no, it's not. And it could be, wow, that looks like a great thing. And inside your body is going, ooh, something's a bit off. That's what I would love you to learn to trust. Your intuition, your inner knowing, your guidance, inner guidance. Because that's where your true power and potential comes from. And of course, like we're all meant to do, sell a product at the end of our video, because that's what marketers tell us that we have to do. I will mention that I have my course opening up this week. It's called Power and Potential. It's all about your trusting yourself and your intuition. You see how nicely I led into that? I don't have a marketing coach at the moment, but if I did, hopefully she would be happy with me. And I'm also meant to say, please like and subscribe to this video channel, and please share it with your friends so that the algorithms on YouTube can promote my video and I can get more seen and known. Don't forget to follow my Facebook page, Awake, Aware, Sovereign and Free, and look me up on Instagram, Karen Turpin, Energy Coach. Don't you love how I just popped that one in so nicely? Not really trying to be facetious, just trying to make a little joke, because that's what we all do, isn't it? On our videos, try and promote our things. Anyway, I'm having a joke, but I hope that you found this inspirational, and maybe there's a few things for you to think about and go away and research. Having a little bit of fun today. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll talk to you next week. Have a great week. Bye-bye.